now my mind is blown. No surprise, guess I should have known. Oh, now my mind is blown. No surprise, guess I should have known. You got control of me, break my barricades. Walls are crumbling, grounds they shake. You came to save, but it's way too late. Every single time you stay, I cave.
Of Neurodivergent News Live, exploring what it means to be neurodivergent in a neurotypical world and how we can help each other navigate it. I'm your host, Deanna Brakefield, neurodivergent entrepreneur, mom, advocate, and I'm so glad that you've chosen to join us today. Whether you're tuning in live or catching the replay, this space is all about bringing real stories and diverse voices with actionable insights to the surface. Because too often, those of us who experience the world differently are left out of the conversation. So today's episode is especially powerful. We're talking about representation in the media and how neurodivergent individuals are portrayed on screen, in the news, and across social platforms. We'll explore a little bit about who's telling those stories and how they're shown and what may be still missing in the larger narrative. From the characters we see on TV and film to the rise of indie creators, it can be frustrating to still be in those persistent stereotypes. There's so much to unpack about how the media shapes the world's understanding of us and how we as neurodivergent people can take back that narrative. So settle in. If you're the type that likes to take notes, grab your notebook and let's dive straight in. Today, I have with me my amazing husband, Jeremy, indie parent and advocate and co-host of this great show. He always brings a plethora of insight and lived experience to every conversation. Jeremy, say hello.
Hello, I am Jeremy Brakefield, founder of Lion.
Now, before I introduce our special guest, I do want to give a shout out to Stone. He is not going to be with us this evening. I mean, he always brings such amazing insight and unique humor to the show. We're looking forward to him joining us again soon. But today, our special guest, and I'm so excited because this is another wonderful Kara Wilson connection. We have with us Miss Kimberly. Now, tell me if I get this wrong. It's Jurgen?
That is correct.
Yeah, I got it right again. So she is actually the creator of Introvert Empowerment Coaching, and she has a long history with classic theater. You may have seen her on a few of your favorite TV shows over the years. She's just amazing. So, Miss Kimberly, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Jurgen, and I am a neurospicy actor and a screenwriter and a coach. You may have seen me covered in Beatles on Bones or line dancing with my beer buddy Cam on Modern Family. But I love helping, especially neurospicy professionals, so that they feel more in flow with who they are, how they present themselves, with their branding, with how they are showing up in the world and telling the story that they are here to tell.
Okay, so anybody who may have looked at the show notes ahead of time, cheater, pumpkin eater, we're talking about not just representation in the media, but the realness, the accuracy of those representations. So before we launch into the meat, any opening thoughts?
Just that I'm very excited about what is being talked about within the entertainment community, and also what has been under the surface throughout all of the entertainment history.
Okay, Jeremy?
I'm just interested to have a discussion about this topic with you nice ladies.
So, okay. I think, but before we get in, let's talk a little bit about definitions. I always do that. I like to make sure that we're using the same words. So there's a difference between representation being authentic and it being token. And a lot of us are really familiar with those stereotypes that have been very pervasive in the media through the last several decades. I'd like to start with Miss Kimberly. Do you see that there is a shift happening from that they're just there because the formula says they should be stereotyped character to something more real?
I would say one of the really exciting things that's happening that I'm seeing is how, even though, let's talk about TV for a second, even though the show creator, the showrunner, may not themselves be neurodivergent, they do know the importance of telling the story authentically. And so they are going to have consultants in the writer's room to help them tell the story authentically and accurately. Also, as they are casting actors who are vocal about their neurodivergence, they will also be able to have an impact on the characters and the way that they are portrayed.
Okay, so that seems like that's very a stark difference from years past.
Yes. Yeah. I would say in years past, and it's pretty much everything, though, in years past have been the very same voice trying to speak everybody's voice. And they don't know how everybody talks. It would be like me saying that I would be able to write an authentic story about an Asian family living in Thailand. I've never been there. I don't know anything about that. For me to be able to think that I could tell their story authentically is the height of hubris. And historically, that's what we've had, is a lot of hubris storytelling. But now, and the reason why I think there's the shift is because there's been so much pushback on it. There have been so many people who have spoken up and said, you are not telling my story authentically. You are pretending to be me, but you don't know me.
Well, I mean, we do live in a world where, for many individuals, what they see on the screen as the representation of us is the only real interaction that they will ever get with neurodivergence. And then when they interact with one of us, they expect us to behave inside those paradigms. And spectrum means wheel. We're all over the place.
Exactly. And that's why I love that there are so many characters now that where the characters being neurodivergent is part of the conversation within the story.
Right. So, I mean,
you've got Will Trent, you've got Perception, The Good Doctor. Like, there have been so many shows where it was central to that character. And so the sad thing is that person then, in the mind of someone who hasn't experienced that themselves, you're right, that one voice tends in their mind to speak for everyone.
Mm-hmm. So do I hear you saying that, I mean, as a child growing up, I didn't know the term neurodivergent. I don't think it was being bandied around in most circles. But when I thought about people like me, I got the image of Dustin Hoffman's Rain Man. And that was kind of everybody's perception for decades of what it meant to be autistic. And that is a harmful stereotype. I mean, yes, there are people like that, but that is not even close to the majority, but that's what they anticipated. So we're moving past that.
Yes, we are. And part of it is that that age. I'm Gen X. And yeah, Gen X, that was not part of the discussion. And so that's where you've got a lot of folks who are today hearing about it and self-diagnosing, because there weren't tests when I was a kid. I didn't even know what dyslexia was until I was in college and read it in my biology textbook. And I was like, oh, wait, there's a word for that? Everybody doesn't do that? I had no idea that I had dyslexia until I read it in a medical textbook.
Okay, so you just touched on a hotbed topic, that accurate representation can actually lead to a common person experiencing some sort of revelation of self.
Exactly. So having that representation where this character is seen, and they are a very positive, they're a role model character. So identifying with them is acceptable and encouraged. It helps you to see that representation and see, oh my gosh, that's me. That feels like me.
Okay. So, I mean, in the past, we looked at things like we were stereotyped as like the quirky genius or the weird uncle that didn't have kids. They were very negative stereotypes. So, I mean, I do watch some modern TV, but I haven't been a TV junkie since I was in my early 30s. So, what are are we seeing a shift in those portrayals? Like, away from the emotionless tech person into real people with real emotions and experiences?
Yes, absolutely. And like we said earlier, sometimes it's overt and sometimes it's coded.
Mm-hmm.
So for something like Big Bang Theory, you've got Sheldon Cooper. He is coded as being autistic, but it's never talked about.
Okay, now that's an industry term. I know what you're talking about. Maybe you explain it for our audience. What's the difference between coded and overt?
Overt is where it's in the conversation, where it is central to the character and the other characters around them know this about themselves. The character knows this about themselves, and it is part of what they do and how they do it.
Okay.
Coded means that looking from the outside in, you can see all of these traits that represent this might be part of the underlying characteristic of this person. And it's possible that the writers don't know. I've read from a lot of showrunners and show creators. He didn't create Sheldon Cooper to specifically be that. I would also venture to say that sometimes the actors may not even know that that is something that they are portraying. We don't know because that's not something we talk about. It's not something that most actors are even vocal about for themselves. If they are on the neurospicy spectrum, it's only starting to become something that is okay, because just like the way you said, like having that quirky character, it's the same thing for an actor. To be working in this industry, it's okay for you to be a little bit quirky, but there's a limit to how much quirkiness a production can tolerate, because it's going to slow everything down. It's going to make the days more expensive. It makes it less predictable, and unpredictable is expensive.
So what I'm hearing is that while Hollywood is attempting to be more inclusive with the overarching paradigm, there are real physical limitations, excuse me, that might make it difficult to, say, have an all ADHD cast for a show about people with ADHD. That becomes very difficult because of the issues that we have that have to be accommodated.
Well, like there is a show on, I want to say Netflix. It's called Atypical, and all of the cast is
okay.
Yes, they are all spectrum. And so when they are creating it and creating the environment of the shoot, it is with that in mind. So the same way that if it's a child on set, there are certain things that you have to follow, but those are legal things that you have to follow for a child to be there. There's only so many hours they can work, and they have to, like, there's a lot of things to think about. So that's all it comes down to, is for the set, for them to pre-plan to make it an environment that matches the needs and the nature of the individuals who have been cast as the leads in this project.
So Atypical was one that I actually fell absolutely in love with. So I'm glad you brought that one up. I think the most iconic line in the entire series is, "We don't all effing love penguins." it begs to mind with the range of ways that we present ourselves to society. Are holding on to those stereotypes in the media, is that helpful to us or is it harmful to us, considering that neurotypicals really, really love to generalize things?
I think the more that it can become part of the discussion, the better. And the more that we can highlight how characters that people know and love, like Die Hard, McCain, is it John McCain? I think is the character's name. McClane, thank you. Had a hunch you would know. He has a lot of neurodivergent personality traits. John Wick from the Wick movies. Like there are so many action heroes. Lara Croft, Ripley from the Alien movies. Like there are so many qualities that these characters have that are coded for and can be interpreted as them being neurodivergent.
And now, see, I've always assumed that that was just genius expression from the actors, the way that that came across, because that's one of the goals with any media like TV or movies is to get the audience to identify with those characters. So I always thought that that was just an actor's thing, that they gave life to those characters.
Well, I mean, honestly, one of the incredible things is that neurodivergent is fascinating on camera.
Okay.
Someone who just sort of lives their life and goes about their day and reacts the way that everybody else, and that is in quotes, reacts, is not interesting. They're not going to make a movie about that person. Mm-hmm. They're going to make a movie about a person who sees the world differently, who is seen by the world differently, who can function in a way that is so single focused that they are able to overcome things like in Die Hard, he has to run across a room barefoot that's got broken glass everywhere. And he is able to do it because of his focus and his ability to compartmentalize in a way that helps him save the day. So we are the ones who save the day. Ripley does, like every Alien movie is all about her being able to push through what, general citizen would just be sitting down immobile or in a fetal position crying about.
I mean, you're not wrong. I never thought about that action heroes were sort of in their own, like a neurodivergent community unto themselves.
Yes. And so I think the more that we can make that part of the conversation, it can help neurodivergent folks to see themselves, like find a character that you identify with, that, oh, this person has my traits. I connect with them. And then let that person be like your angel on your shoulder, who can remind you that you are freaking awesome.
Now, Jeremy, you are being very, very quiet over there. This is not like you, sir.
Well, for the most part, I've got one particular question that's been tumbling in the back of my head that when I saw this show topic, I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
And it is, how do we change, I guess, the neurotypical viewpoint of us as autistics? And what I mean by that is, speaking of Sheldon Cooper and the way he was on The Big Bang Theory, I've seen lots and lots of comments about how he was an absolutely horrible person. And every time that I see one of the comments, it's always something about his neurodivergent, where the way he treated this person, but it was completely his neurodivergence and he was just being him. How can we, as autistic and neurodivergent individuals, how can we change that so that so that neurotypicals can actually see and understand that we're just us. We're not a-holes. We're not like insensitive. It's just, hey, we didn't think about it. It did not even ping on the radar. I'm sorry we offended you. I'm sorry we hurt your feelings, but it wasn't intentional. We didn't mean to do it. How can we...
One of the things that so much of my coaching and my own research has been going into lately is celebrating the uniqueness of each of us. Mm-hmm. And the more that we can see that and see that just because you don't react the way that I do, just because you don't think or behave or something that mimics me, doesn't make either of us less than, better than. We're just other. We're just our own unique people. And if a character did something that you don't like, well, guess what? You probably did something today that somebody who is a very close personal friend or family member of you didn't like. That's the human existence. You can't expect somebody to be some kind of a saint. I mean, even Mother Teresa had to have a bad day. I'm sure there were days where she was saying some things that weren't, that she had to then go confess. Because she was a human being. We are all human beings. And fictional characters portrayed by human beings are going to have qualities about them that make it entertaining, because that's the point. And so, yeah, he's going to be mean to somebody because they need to have that scene of reconciliation. They need to have that scene later where they come to realize something about themselves. And so you've got to have that fall before you can have that rise.
I think what you just said is super, super important, because it brings us to the other side of this conversation. What we've talked about up till now has been the dramatization of neurodivergence inside media, things that are specifically designed to entertain us, and whether or not they're accurate. So we've kind of landed on they can't be, because then they're not entertaining, but they are to an extent accurate. So in modern society, for the last 15 to 20 years, there has been a whole nother side to the media that is starting to be talked about more and more over the last few years, and that's the rise of social media. So we've got content creators on every platform. Some of them are mocking us, and they are creating the stereotype. Others are us, and they're perpetrating moments from their lives, and they're showing the world what it's like to walk beside a neurodivergent person in the real world, and how it can be funny and sometimes not so funny. So thoughts on that?
There are always going to be haters. Haters going to hate. And so I try to create a focus for my energy that doesn't give any space for that. Because I don't care who you are, how amazing you are, somebody's going to be hating on you.
Mm-hmm. You can't please everybody, I think, is another way of saying it.
Exactly. Somebody is probably offended that I said something about Mother Teresa. So literally if you live your life to be unoffensive to everyone around you, you will basically have the most small life that you can live. And it is definitely not a life that lets you be authentic to who you are. And I think that should be the goal. And the more we are out there, and the more that there is conversation around this, and people are curious about others rather than jumping to conclusions.
Right.
I think that's where we can grow just as human beings. And to be more humane beings. But there are people who just love to stir up trouble because they want the likes. They want the adoration. They want the money that they can get from being contrary. And they don't even think about the fact that they are having an impact, because all they're thinking about is what they are personally getting out of it, because they lack empathy.
Okay. But there is a good side to the social media in creators, in my opinion, is because I've met so many people that the first that they ever heard of dyslexia or autism or neurodivergence was because a random creator flitted across their feed somewhere, and they actually had a moment where they went, what does that mean?
Exactly. And it sparked that sense of curiosity in them. That's what's so wonderful. So I love folks who are speaking their truth. I am all for that. Like, show others who you are, because your experience hasn't been witnessed by everybody yet.
That is very true. That is very... Jeremy, are you're still going to just sit up there and let me and Kimberly have the whole conversation?
Like I say constantly, I'll say something when I got something to say. Y'all are doing fine saying everything I need said. So, because I completely agree.
So, not to give anybody any shout outs or anything, but do you have any favorite content creators or maybe neurodivergent actors that have inspired or impressed you personally?
Well, as I said, a lot of folks in the neurodivergent community don't vocalize it, because who are in the entertainment industry, because it can pigeonhole you. It can become difficult to just for your career, because if you are seen as somebody that's going to slow down the well-oiled machine of the set, then folks might think, a couple of times before they're going to hire you. So I would say there are probably a lot of actors that we don't know about who are neurospicy.
I don't know. I'm old school. My two favorites are always going to be Sir Anthony Hopkins and Morgan Freeman. Both amazing autistic men who have canonized and pillarized themselves as icons in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Now, have they come out and verbally said that they are?
Yes, they actually have.
Fabulous.
Sir Anthony Hopkins did it about 15 years ago, and Morgan did it a few years before him.
I love that.
But now, let's be real. They were also very established, sought-after actors when they made those declarations.
Exactly. Being an Academy Award-winning actor, being knighted, Sir Anthony Hopkins, it gives you a little more freedom to say what it is. And that's why I love that they are coming out and saying that. So thank you for sharing that. You have enlightened me today with that information. Okay. Because it is rare. Now, what I'm hoping is that the new crop of actors that are coming up, where there is more testing when they're in school, where there is more conversation about it, where there is more attention and I don't want to say the word normalizing it, but that kind of fits in that it's just not a big deal. That's maybe a better word for it. Mm-hmm. It's so that I think can make a huge difference on what folks are able to say. Also, because they just are going to know things about themselves differently. Like we talked about earlier, being Gen X, we have no idea from our history of knowing that. Dan Harmon, who created Community and Rick and Morty, he is a late in life discoverer of that he is on the autism spectrum.
Well, you may not know this, there weren't even diagnostic criteria until the early 80s.
Yeah.
And exactly. Then they were coded for male, not female.
Right.
And that's just autism. The rest came later. Exactly.
But I'll say this while I'm just talking about Dan, is that he was given feedback that that people were seeing one of his characters as being coded for autism, and it made him curious about it because he created this character. It came from him. And so that was what inspired him to then go get tested and to find out what the truth is for him.
Well, now that's just a little bit different, that the creation inspired action in real life for the creator.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
And that's why I say a lot of times the writers may not know that what they are creating. And so that might be why it's not part of the dialogue. It's not part of the conversation of the character or within the story, because they don't realize what they're creating from their own truth actually is someone who is neurodivergent.
So you say that for the actors, it's still highly stigmatized to be open about your differences in that way, just because there's that fear of slowing down the machine. When it comes to the actual characters that y'all are portraying, we see an overabundance of autistic characters, but until Will Trent debuted a few years ago, I can't think of a single dyslexic character that stood out. There aren't many characters that aren't coded autistic that we see. Are you seeing a shift in that, or is it still mostly the main case?
There are a lot of characters. There's the one on Community, Parenthood, The Good Doctor, A Brilliant Young Mind, Temple Grandin, The Accountant, and The Accountant 2, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like, there are tons of characters who are explicitly neurodivergent. Mm-hmm. And even on HBO's The Pit, which is set in an ER, they just had like a throwaway line in I think the first episode where they said that their being ADHD is what made them such great ER doctors. And that's why they were drawn to the ER, because they all have ADHD. And it was just this throwaway line that most people probably miss. But I was like, oh my God, I love that. Say it out loud.
That's great.
Yeah, well, but it is kind of like that passively in real life, though, because somebody notes you do something extraordinary or odd, and you go, oh, it's just my ADHD. Oh, it's just my autism. You dismiss it in your casual conversations.
Yes, but I feel like we should celebrate it. So everything that I discover about myself, my having dyslexia, I celebrate that every single day.
So what benefits has your dyslexia maybe granted you during the course of your career? Because, I mean, most of us are familiar with the drawbacks, difficulty reading, and several other collective issues.
Right. Depending on where you are on that spectrum, too. Mine is not nearly as extreme as the character in Will Trent.
Okay.
Not even close to that. But it gives me the ability to see things from multiple perspectives, because the way that my brain creates the wiring for new ideas. So when somebody says something to me, I can usually think of like 15 different tangents to it. So the character from Good Will Hunting, not Good Will Hunting. Yes, no, Dead Poet Society. In Dead Poet Society, when he had them stand up, Robin Williams' character had everybody stand on the desk and look around, and then that's that big the climax at the end of the movie where the kid stands on the desk and says, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," to see the world a little bit differently. I feel like I do that every day about everything that I see. I am constantly seeing it from the floor. I'm seeing it from the table. I am seeing it from a drone looking down. I am looking at things from so many different angles, and it's all because of my dyslexia.
Okay, so I've not heard anybody expand on the positives from an intellectual perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my brain is wired differently, because my brain is wired to know that what I see may or may not be accurate.
So you have to pull multiple different reference points to validate what you believe you're seeing.
Yes. Because I don't know if it's left or right. I don't know, in looking at letters, I don't know what letter that might be. And so I have to challenge it constantly. And that has trained my brain to constantly look at things from multiple angles, to, like you said, I love that phrasing of it, to get multiple data sources before
For me, that's the way my memory works. Is that I don't just have a singular memory. It's I have essentially have this web network where I have a memory in a specific place because these four other memories connect into it because of this particular factor. And those connect into this, and those connect into this, and so it creates this huge, massive web. So I know for a fact that this is exactly how things went down because of these 12 other factors.
Yes.
And so it strikes me as a similar something. It's you potentially looking at some letters, and you're like, these may be this particular letters, and so you have to look around for context clues to make sure that okay, this is actually what I'm seeing.
Yes. There's a show called Irrational, and unfortunately, I don't think it was renewed for a third season on Peacock. But one of the things that the main character says is that you can't trust memory, and I'm like, I don't think you know everybody, because there's photographic memory, which I don't have, and those people I think are just amazing creatures on this planet, and I am so happy they are here. But there are people who remember things that specifically. I remember years and years ago, I was telling somebody about a movie that I just saw that I absolutely loved. And he was looking at me like I had grown a third eye. And he said, I know, I was at that movie with you. And I had he had not been attached to the memory of the movie, but the second he said that, it made that connection to him and it brought it in. Exactly. And then I said, oh my God, that's right, because you were wearing, and I told him exactly what he was wearing. I quoted part of the conversation that we had that night. But when I was just like laser focused on the movie that I saw and how much that movie impressed me, he was not a part of that. So I think that we are there are like so many ways to be a human. To say that we have to do the same stuff the same way limits everybody.
Yeah.
I completely agree. You're right. And I think that's one of the reasons this conversation is so important, is because as we're moving from a place of centralized dramatization to actual representation, we're rehumanizing ourselves to the rest of society, because we were a joke that was dismissible, and now we're saying no. We want representation to be accurate because we are equal to you.
Yes.
Well, at the end of the day, like we constantly say on this show, we're not a new phenomenon. Neurodivergent individuals, we have been here for thousands of years. When you look back at the philosophers and the inventors and generally most of the people that you thought were crazy but refused to sit down and go, no, you're right, I shouldn't try to. I mean, look at the Wright brothers. They said they were crazy. Man wasn't meant to fly until he was. And that's the thing, is that we've always been here. How do we fit in? Because we always had some way, somewhere to fit in. We might have been the hunter. We might have been the scout. We might have been the crazy eccentric out in the woods eating all the mushrooms, finding out what was poisonous and what wasn't. And it's just, where do we fit in this modern world?
Yeah. But because there was never any, I don't want to say, because it's not all about testing, but it's about quantifying it. Because there wasn't a way to quantify it in the past, I don't think Einstein had any clue that he was neurodivergent. Madame Curie, she had no idea she was neurospicy. There, Da Vinci, like nobody knew. They just were themselves. They were doing their thing, and they were celebrated for it. But nobody knew how they did their stuff. They were just freaking geniuses at it.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's where the more that we see the genius within ourselves about that thing that makes us atypical, that is the beginning of that, because that gives us the confidence to be able to speak our truth, to live our truth, and to not feel like we owe anybody an apology for who we are and how we are.
I completely agree. I mean, I'm looking forward to the future as we begin to fill in some of the gaps and start to show more and more neurotypes as being normalized, not just being the butt end of a joke in somebody's script that they didn't, it was passively even put in. It wasn't an active, like you were trying to do it. We're shifting that narrative, and that's amazing. I would like to personally see some more stories like Temple Grandin's and fewer like Sheldon Cooper's, just because I feel like most neurodivergents on TV are white guys. But
Agreed.
that is shifting too.
But that has been part of my own frustration, and that's why for so long I didn't even watch The Accountant, and then The Accountant 2 came out, and I do like action movies, but I'm like, all right, fine, I'll look at it. I had no idea that his character was overtly autistic.
Okay, I didn't either. Now I'm
and he was completely supported by a room of autistic geniuses who were artistic in their ability with computers and the way that they saw the world and the way that they could manage things. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, what have I been missing? And it's one of the top 10 on the second one that just came out within the past month or so is in the top 10 on Amazon Prime. So I love that people are seeing it and appreciating it. And he is the hero of the story. And they are the heroes of the story as well, his support team.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the woman who is his supporter, she is not able to verbally speak, so she has to use a machine to verbally communicate with others. But she is a freaking genius. Okay, and so I love that. So yes, if my saying that gets you to go watch it. Now, if you like action movies, I will say this: there is extreme amounts of violence, and yes, there are times where I just close my eyes and I don't watch it, because I am not a big fan of human beings having extreme violence with other human beings. I am not a fan of that, but I do love so much of how, as a character, he treats it as though it's such a part of him that there's nothing wrong with it. He doesn't apologize for it. Mm-hmm. And his brother, who doesn't really get it, says things like, did you not try to connect with me or to find me? Do you not like me because of who I am? Or is it because of the way you are? You're just not able to. So they have these really interesting conversations from these two incredibly strong, violent men. So one of the reasons why I didn't gravitate toward it was because it was another, frankly, white guy. Mm-hmm. And I love seeing movies about women. I want to see more female representation. And that has been a thing within this industry. Because of the history of the industry. And I could get into like what the history of the entertainment industry is and how it used to be very like women directors were the thing. And then when that shifted and So then the conversation changed, and then it became just, the white guy's boy club. And so that's why so many of those movies are going to be the same thing that we've been seeing for so long, but it's starting to shift. And I love the shift that is happening.
So I'm going to throw a discussion question out to our listening audience. You know where to find us on the kfred.com forums, find Neurodivergent News, and let's chat about what kind of stories are still missing in the media, and how do you want to see those storylines portrayed, or how those stories be told? I'd love to hear your opinions and what you're thinking, especially for, my neurodivergent adults out there that are used to being underrepresented but feel like things are shifting. Let's get that positive note and energy flowing. So before we wrap up today, I would love to give Miss Kimberly just a few minutes to tell us about some of the amazing projects that she's got going on in her neck of the world.
Oh, wow. I still work a lot in the entertainment industry, and I also do a lot of work as a coach, and I love doing both. One of the things that I work with as a coach is finding that balance and finding flow for folks between their nature and nurture.
Okay.
How do you discover who you are, and who you are on a DNA level, at a basic I was born this way level, and then how can you live more in flow and create a life that gives you a sense of balance and harmony within that, and the way that you have been natured. And life has created different feelings about yourself and about how you interact with the world. And I think that's a big part of, at least for myself and for a lot of my clients, when you are neurospicy, your opinion of yourself is dictated by what the world tells you should feel about yourself. So sometimes it's shifting that so that you can embrace all the parts of you and see how you are the superhero of your own story, and how you can create a life that you are excited about and live it the way that helps you be in balance with who you are.
All right, that's where I'm going to cut in and say my social cues aren't always the best, and I don't want to cut you off. That's great. I love that. So if they're interested in hearing more, how can they reach out to you?
They can find me on the socials. I tend to spend more time on Blue Sky than the others, but I'm Kimberly Jurgen is my handle on all of them. And I would love to chat with anybody who would enjoy a conversation with me. And you can also find me. My website is radicalcuriositycoach.com.
Oh, I like that title. So I will make sure that all of her socials and contacts are included in the forums and the blog posts, so that if anybody's interested, they'll be able to reach out to her. So we're at that point now where we start talking about last thoughts and start wrapping everything up. So Jeremy, I'd love to throw it to you since you're the quiet one today.
I think the main thing to keep in mind is just to try to be authentic with how we appear.
Simply put today, and that is perfectly okay. Miss Kimberly, please.
I love that. Finding your authenticity, embracing your authenticity, and seek out where you are represented already. There are many comic book characters where the heroes are neurodivergent. Find the characters that have the qualities where maybe that character is coded to be like you, even if they're not overtly like you. Find the ways that help you feel more connected to the world and connected to those around you, and most importantly, connected to yourself.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Okay, so my people, things that you can do to further this conversation in your own life. reach out and follow and promote those neurodivergent creators that are out there. If you know that you've got a screenwriter in your life, or even an author in your life, an actor in your life, a painter, it doesn't matter who they are. If they are an indie creator, get behind them, ask them what sort of support that they need in order to help them achieve the successes that they're reaching for. Because advocacy isn't just about action, it's also about alliances. So like I said, support those storytellers who live the experience. If we want better representation, we have to help lift up the voices and speak our truths. So next week, we will have another exciting episode of Neurodivergent News live here, Sunday at 5 p.m. Central. We will be talking about Life Chapter 2, what comes after a late life diagnosis, and how you can begin to make your newly discovered neurotype work for you. And we will have the amazing Jess Monahan on with us. But today, Kimberly, this has been absolutely amazing. I thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. It was wonderful chatting with you both. Thank you.
All right, Jeremy, give us that outro music.
You got control of